Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever looked at something like a plastic bottle or a nylon jacket and just wondered, how is this even made? Well, it's not exactly magic, but it is some seriously cool chemistry. Today we are going deep into the molecular world to see how these materials are built, literally one link at a time. So to get us started, let me ask you something. What could nylon stockings, a tube of superglue, and a plain old plastic bottle possibly have in common? I mean, think about it. You've got something silky and flexible, a super strong adhesive, and then this clear, rigid container. They seem totally different, right? But deep down, they share a fundamental secret. And the answer is, they're all polymers. They are all made of these ridiculously long, tangled up chains of molecules. The best way to picture it is like taking millions of tiny paper clips and linking them together into these massive, strong chains. And those chains are what give these materials all their cool properties. Today, we're going to zero in on one of the main ways these chains get built, and it's called step growth polymerization. Okay, so here's the game plan. We'll start with the absolute basics, the building blocks themselves. Then we'll see how they connect in what I like to call a slow and steady dance. After that, we'll check out the polymer family tree, figure out why size is everything when it comes to strength, and finally, we'll compare this method to its much faster cousin, chain growth polymerization. All right, first things first. You can't build a giant castle without bricks, right? Well, in the polymer world, our bricks are called monomers. So let's meet them. Now, for these little monomer molecules to actually link up, they need a way to connect. You can think of them as having tiny molecular hands that are ready to grab onto another molecule. Chemists have a name for these reactive parts: functional groups. And things you've probably heard of, like an alcohol group or an amine group, those are perfect examples. They're the spots where all the action is about to happen. And this image here, it's the perfect way to think about it. Imagine you have a big box of Legos. Each one of those bricks is a monomer. And those little studs and connectors on them? Yep, those are the functional groups. They're just sitting there, waiting to snap together and build something way, way bigger. So we've got our building blocks, but how do we get from a pile of individual Legos to a massive finished structure? Well, it's all about the process, this slow and very steady molecular dance. And here's the absolute key to understanding this whole thing. Step growth polymerization is not a flash mob. It's way more like a formal choreographed dance. The reactions happen one after another in a really deliberate step-by-step way. There's no crazy out-of-control chain reaction. It's slow, it's methodical. Now, don't let this diagram scare you. The idea is actually super simple. Right at the beginning, two of those single units, the monomers, find each other and link up to form a dimer. That's just a two-unit piece. Then that little dimer can find another monomer, or maybe it'll find another dimer, and connect. The chain just keeps growing bit by bit from these small pairs into longer and longer chains as time goes on. It's a really gradual buildup. You know, this dance has its own set of rules. For one, pretty much any two pieces in the soup can react with each other. Doesn't matter if they're a tiny monomer or a slightly bigger chain. Because of this, all the single monomers get used up really fast, pairing off into those little dimers and trimers right at the start. And as these smaller pieces combine, the average size, the molecular weight, just climbs steadily. But, and this is super important, you have to let the reaction go almost all the way to completion to get those really long, really useful polymer chains. And after all that time, this is what you get. You go from all those separate little building blocks to these enormous, tangled up, high molecular weight polymer chains. And this tangled, spaghetti-like structure is exactly what gives materials like polyester their incredible strength and flexibility. Okay, so step growth is kind of a family name. It turns out there are a few different ways these molecular bricks can actually connect to each other. So let's take a look at the main branches of this family tree. There are really three main categories. The most common one is called polycondensation. That's where two monomers join up, but in the process, they kick out a small molecule, like water. Then you have polyaddition, where the monomers join up really cleanly, with no atoms lost at all. And finally, there's a hybrid that's kind of like a mix of both. And this slide shows that difference perfectly. Over on the left, you're seeing how nylon 66 is made. See how when those two monomers link up, a little water molecule gets kicked out? That is classic polycondensation. But on the right, you've got polyaddition. The monomers just add to one another, nice and neat, with nothing else being formed. And that's how we get things like polyethylene. We've been throwing this term molecular weight around a few times now, so let's just pause and really get into why the size of these polymer chains is, well, maybe the most important thing about them. To put it simply, size is strength. So, molecular weight is just what it sounds like. It's the total mass of a single polymer chain. But here's the catch. When you're making this stuff in a lab, you don't get perfectly identical chains. You end up with a whole mix, some long ones, some short ones, a bunch in between. That's why scientists always talk about the average molecular weight. It gives them a good idea of what the whole batch is like. So why do we care so much about this average weight? Because longer chains make for better, stronger materials. Simple as that. A higher molecular weight means you can stretch something farther before it snaps. It makes it more resistant to impacts, and those long chains get all tangled up with each other, kind of like a giant bowl of spaghetti, and that entanglement is what really gives a material its toughness. So next time you see heavy-duty plastic, you'll know its strength comes from chemists who made sure to grow incredibly long, tangled polymer chains. And this brings up a really cool distinction. These man-made polymers we've been talking about, with their whole jumble of different chain lengths, they're called polydisperse. Nature, on the other hand, is way more precise. Things like the proteins in our bodies are monodisperse. Every single chain is the exact same length, down to the atom. And that's why this idea of an average is so critical for the materials we create ourselves. Okay, we've spent a lot of time on this slow and steady path, but it's not the only way to build a polymer. So let's wrap things up by putting it side by side with the other major pathway, chain growth polymerization. This table breaks down the differences so well. The biggest one by far is speed. With step growth, the chains get longer and longer slowly over the whole reaction time. With chain growth, boom, a super long polymer chain forms almost instantly. And look at what's in the reaction mix. For step growth, the single monomers disappear fast into a soup of all different sized chains. But with chain growth, you've mostly got single monomers and these huge, fully formed polymers just hanging out together. They are just fundamentally different ways of building. And this final comparison just brings it all home. On the left, you have step growth, that slow, methodical linking that gives us materials like nylon and polyester. And on the right, you have chain growth, a super fast reaction that creates things like the polyethylene in plastic bags and the PVC in pipes. Two totally different paths to create the amazing and diverse world of materials we use every single day. So there you have it. We went from a single tiny molecule with reactive hands all the way up to the tough, durable stuff that literally shapes our world. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible, invisible processes like this are happening all around us, just hiding in plain sight? Thanks for joining me.